But I just wanted to make sure that everyone is set in a group. Okay. I had over the years I had that experience. So hopefully nothing will happen this semester. That's why like a couple of semesters ago I start asking for like formal groups. I would love to have everyone of you guys play with OpNet. I don't want like one or two smart people to play with the OpNet and the rest will just do some paperwork. Okay? So, well, when your team is working, please make sure that everyone makes something with OpNet. Okay? Again, the OpNet is never the goal. You are an electrical engineer. Or in my class, I consider you as a network engineer. So, network engineers, you design networks. You're not a simulator. I mean, some people just work for simulation. They have like simulation groups. But I wouldn't really want that for you. I want you to design engineer. Nothing wrong with simulation by itself, but your perspectives as an engineer in terms of growth, professionally, mentally, career-wise, okay, is when you design. So, in the engineering world, if you're a designer, you're the king or the queen. Okay? So that should be your aim. So once you start working, you're going to be like the junior engineer that assists in the design. You're going to be doing like minor stuff. So the principal engineer or the senior engineer will tell you, oh, just go investigate if this wireless, like cellular network wireless gateway can transmit on 2 frequency bands. So, for example, so you're going to go explore that. You're going to report back to your superiors like, oh yeah, it can support it. And I found 2 vendors, say Cisco and Juniper, or Nokia or Ericsson, whatever that is. But these are the big players, by the way. Oh, they can support 2 frequency bands on our cellular RAN. RAN is radio access network. Then after you and your senior engineer design the whole network, you'll bounce this off the simulator folks. So they'll just validate your design. They only play with software and modules, but there's no much growth. Okay? Why am I saying all this? Because I don't want you to lose the sight of the project. The project's for you to design. Simulation, it's a must know, but it's just to validate your design. So I don't want anyone like, oh, simulation is my main thing. No. The project is for you to design a network. And that's what I want to see on the report. How you design your network. Okay? Oh, I saw 2 autonomous vehicles. And by the way, a vehicle could mean a car, a drone, and a boat. Okay, it's just a vehicle. So, the 2 autonomous vehicles, when they're on 2 different altitudes, moving away from each other, the delay will increase. That's your design assumption. And then you tell the simulator or the simulation group, but hey, I think that will happen. Could you please verify it? Or if your drone is moving 500 miles per hour, and you went to Cisco or Juniper or whatever that is, and their product sheet states that they can support 600 miles per hour, but you're not sure. So before you buy the equipment and you spend like $500,000 for ideation and proof of concept, you'd run it by the simulation group. Okay? So the point I want to make for the 10th time. Simulation is not the purpose. Design, network design is the purpose, and we're just using simulation to validate your design. Is that point clear?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want you to value what you're doing on the project and to understand exactly. Because when I was a student like you, I was given, not in 460, but in other courses, I was given like assignments. And many times I was not really clear what's the ask. I mean, of course, I know the ask for the assignment, but how that will help me to grow as an engineer in the future. So that was one of the missing pieces I'm trying to convey to you, okay, in my course. I don't want you to be a simulator person, but hey, if there are no other opportunities, take it. But if you're given the opportunity, try to be a design engineer. Okay? Who validates the design by simulation? Okay, so I hope things are going well with the project. Because I don't like to talk about the grades, and as I told you at the beginning of the course, I never liked the relationship between me and my students to be bound by the grades. But again, if you only care about the grades, too bad. But here's the story. So far, the majority of you are equal, or most of you. Like as I said, no one has lost the chance to get an A yet. I'm still standing by my words. What's really going to make the cut, you get an A, B, or C, or whatever, the project and the final. Okay, and I'll be more honest with you. I gave you clear instruction for the final, for the project. Trust me, if you follow him, I feel you did honest work, you're gonna get your grade. Okay? I'm not putting pressure on you or anything, but just try to work hard on the project. Don't take it lightly. You'll learn a lot. Okay? Questions?
Yeah.
So we've been talking for a couple of times about layer 2. And as I told you probably before, I did my PhD in layer 2. I spent 6 years and a half or 7 years just talking about layer 2. That was my whole life, basically. And just to make you feel good about yourselves, okay? So after spending 6.5 years, 7 years studying and doing research and innovating on layer 2, my mentor, Mr. Sadawi, you know, I'm very proud of him being my mentor. Like before my dissertation defense, he asked me a question about layer 2. And I stumbled. I mean, you know, I could not really fully answer it. So just want to tell you that no matter how much you grow in knowledge, you're gonna still be missing a lot. So it's okay. But just do your work, okay? Layer 2 is huge. But without layer 2, we're not gonna be able to access any medium. Why? Layer 2 deals with mainly one important aspect. What is that? You have 100 cell phones in a certain zip code. You know, like think of Lower Manhattan, Midtown, whatever, or even City College. So probably City College, but each carrier is covered by like 1, maximum 2 cell towers. So on a good day, probably have 6,000 or 7,000 students in City College. I mean, pre-COVID, okay? So telecommunication companies, if they want to be in business, they have to provide services for all these users. But the cell tower itself can only probably take like 2,000 or 3,000. But you're talking about 5,000. That's okay, because I don't expect that all of them will be making calls at the same time. But for those who are making calls at the same time, I need layer 2 to coordinate who's going to access the medium first, second, third, 1,000, 1,001. Okay? So layer 2, for those who are not following the past couple lectures, coordinates between the master node, that could be a cellular tower, a Wi-Fi router, a gateway, it doesn't really matter, and other users. Okay? Because according to the laws of physics, only one user can access the medium at any given time. You cannot, and put under the words cannot, 200 lines. 2 nodes cannot access the medium at the same time on the same frequency. Okay, plain and simple. And look at you. Can you and your friend talk at the same time, with the same language, with the same vocal strength? A third person will just hear noise. That's a very simple test that you can conduct with you and your friends. So layer 2 is all about coordinating, reducing conflict. In our world, it's called collision. So there are 3 families, and remember we voted on these 3 families. First one is channel partitioning. Guys, I'm reviewing, I'm quickly capturing what we talked about last time. So in case someone did not get the chance to look at their notes, and I'm really sorry. I promised you to send you the lectures, and I totally forgot. So it's my fault, okay? I'm really sorry, and I apologize to every one of you. So please accept my apology on that one. What I'm going to do, I'm going to send the lectures right after this lecture. I send the PDF right after this lecture. So basically, you've got 3 families. And each family of protocols / algorithms have tons of algorithms underneath. So the first one is channel partitioning. Channel partitioning is good, right? But it has certain limitations, especially TDMA and FDMA. They are very intuitive, but they don't make the cut yet. When I say they don't make the cut yet, I am still not able to clearly communicate with all of you at the same time on the same frequency. Then engineers came with the hallmark of the 3G technology. Of course, now we know that the majority of the technology is 4G, and we're going to 5G evolution and 5G. Before you know it, trust me, close your eyes, open your eyes, you're going to see 6G on your phones. But just not to lose perspective, forget about the United States. What is the most wireless generation in the whole world? So here, now we're everyone is 4G. We're sunsetting the 3G probably towards the end this year, early next year. But what is the most used generation in the world? Can anyone take a wild guess?
Is it 2G?
Awesome. Yes, I love that. Yes, sir. It is 2G.
Well, it's super outdated, no?
So when you say outdated, you're a New Yorker, so yeah, for you it's outdated. But look at people in Central Asia or some jungles in Africa or South America, like these remote villages that unfortunately they live in poverty, and cellular phone companies don't really care about upgrading their cellular tower because they don't get a lot of money from them anyway. It's a sad reality. Okay? But yes, you have to deal with reality. The 2G is still the king. 2G is still king. And let me tell you this. Even if cellular phone companies will be able to change the cellular towers to make it like 3G and 4G in countries or these regions, it's too sad that the population cannot really find their daily food and they're stuck with like obsolete phones. They cannot really like us here, or some European countries, just walk into a mobile store and after 10 minutes they check your social security or credit history or whatever, and you walk out with the latest and greatest iPhone. Not everyone has this luxury. It's sad, but again, we have to deal with reality. So 2G is still the king. Okay, I was watching this YouTube about a hacking company, like called hackers, and they were asked in the conference like what the most software, like what you mostly target, and one of the company's representatives said, "Oh, we're still like 2G takes like most of our work." Even me, I was like, "What 2G?" And he said, "Yes, like a lot of people in Central Asia, and and in Africa, the majority is still 2G. So we have to target like a lot of these like illegal trades and stuff like that. They're still use 2G. So that's why it was like, oh my god, people still use 2G." So that was an eye opener for me. So back to our case here. So okay. So we came. So most of the second generation use CDMA, not all of it, because if it happens that you guys work in a wireless company, you have to understand the history. I remember when I started with my current company, I spent like a couple of months just understanding the cellular evolution. So basic, and I forgot a lot of it because I'm working like on like cutting edge more. Yeah. But basically, there were like U.S. and European standards, like competing standards, and they didn't really go hand in hand. But the whole world's standards in terms of wireless, they converge when they approach 4G, and of course 5G is just universal. Okay. If you're planning to have an interview with like one of the big telecommunication carrier like Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, before you go for an interview, I really suggest that you read a couple hours about 5G. Trust me, that most likely will get you the job. Okay? So CDMA became the hallmark of the 3G. CDMA looked like magic back then to engineers. Because if you notice, probably I said it like over 1,000 times in this course, you cannot transmit two signals on the same frequency at the same time. So CDMA came into the industry and kind of broke the concept. Okay? So here you go. You see, everyone is transmitting on the same frequency at the same time, but different what? Can anyone tell me?
What was that?
Hello? Okay, I'll ask the question again. CDMA, everyone is transmitting on the same frequency at the same time, but using different what? What is the element that's... Sorry?
Codes?
Exactly, thank you. So CDMA codes, or others would call it shipping sequences. These mathematical short sequences, they made two signals meeting each other in the space. They would not cause interference. Okay? And we identified why these two signals would not cause interference, because they're orthogonal. You know, in some mathematical, non-mathematical terms, orthogonal mean perpendicular, but not like an angle in the geometry. It's more of like a mathematical concept. We give this very oversimplified example. That's not really accurate. This example is not accurate, but if you understand what is it for, like what is it worth, you like take it with like face value. You'll have a lot of understanding to CDMA. Okay, but I don't want anyone to go like try to connect that to what's happening exactly in CDMA, because they're not really, like, again, this is like probably like 100 or 1,000 times oversimplified from actual CDMA, but it's excellent in showing you the point. And you see, if they're orthogonal, you get like 6, which is here. If they're not orthogonal, you get like either 2 or 8. So it's basically
How you doing, guys? I'm in the
a nice example, just show you what's going on. Okay, so that was like a brief recap of the last couple lectures. Any questions before I proceed? Okay. So the second family is called taking turns math protocol. And honestly, I haven't seen recently that taking turns to be like a big thing. I could be mistaken. I'm not saying it does not exist, but I'm talking about my personal experience. Okay. I think pure taking turns is just diminishing. Again, if you go read somewhere else, different concept, you're probably right. But I'm only giving like a personal impression. Okay, not a science. So taking turns, it is very intuitive. It's like you have 10 nodes. You know, you have 10 nodes, and you have a master node. Okay. In a pure example of client and server, single server and clients. So the master node or the central node, they control every, like, if say we have 10 clients. So the server node or the master node controls the 10 clients, like, oh, you node number 3, it's your time to transmit. You node number 4, your time to transmit. So always you have a central or a master node, a single node that runs the show. Right out of that, can anyone tell me if this scheme is good or bad and why? Again, I don't expect the right answer, but I just want to hear your.
I feel like it's bad because the downtown is more the downtime, because, for example, if they're all doing at the same time, there's no time to waste. You can still transmit data, even though if you're limited by frequency, you're still transmitting. But if you wait on your turn, you're wasting more time, maybe, to transmit.
Oh, okay, that's a good way of thinking. Thank you so much for sharing. It could be, but more I'm more concerned about something else. Okay, I'm more concerned about something else. You guys remember when I gave you the redundancy lecture? You guys remember that or not?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. What is the purpose of redundancy? Come on, guys. What is the purpose of redundancy?
For the end user to always get the same result.
What is that?
For the end user to always have the same result.
Yes, but I'll tell you what it is.
Maybe like
Go ahead.
like if there's like a failure in the system to prevent like disruption of the service.
Thank you so much. Exactly. So the whole concept or the point of redundancy is to eliminate a single point of failure. Just remember this very well, because if it happens that you work as a design engineer, like network design engineer, that will be one of your biggest enemies. Okay. Single point of failure. That's your biggest enemy ever. And in the taking turns protocol, family of protocols, from what I described to you, it's a single node or a single authority that runs the show. You never, ever want a single authority to run your show. Any scheme or any protocol where a single node is given too much power to run the show unilaterally, that's the greatest recipe for failure. Okay? So, you as a network or telecommunication engineer, of course, not you by yourself, but most likely you're going to be working within a team. So there's a group of auditors. They're going to audit your design. Highly skilled engineers. Normally, they're like more than 10, 15 years of experience. It's like a committee. Once you finish your design, so you're going to be working like with a group under one two leader. So these leaders that design the whole network will go in front of this committee, and they have to defend their design. You know, the same way you're gonna come to me and show me your project. Okay? So you're going to get asked a lot of questions. But trust me, the very first question most likely will be asked, do you have any single point of failures? And if this committee or this highly skilled group finds that you have a single point of failure, your design will be torn down. It's like, you know what? We cannot pass or validate this design. Especially if you work for like a big company, because your design most likely will impact millions of users. So if you do something wrong, you and your company will make the news the following day, not in a good way. Okay? So let's see what these protocols are. There are plenty of them. I just chose two. The first one is polling. And by the way, I see here I have master node invite slave nodes. This is like an old term, and it's not really appropriate. Okay, so I just okay. We put client. Oh no. So by the way, since I mentioned that, there is like some lingo that's not acceptable anymore in electrical engineering or in technology in general. Okay, and I have to emphasize that. And this gained, like what I'm going to tell you, it gained popularity in the past couple of years. So before we used to say master-slave relationship between the nodes. If you have a master server and slave nodes, we don't say that anymore. Like purposely, I leave it here and I have to cross in front of my students so they understand what I'm talking about. We more say master, that's okay, and clients, or server and clients. Okay. Let me show you something else. Okay, someone Galaxy S7 Edge. If you're not really with your name, I'm not gonna let you in. Okay, so we used to say for firewalls, we used to say blacklist. Let me see who's there. Okay, so we used to say for firewalls, blacklist and whitelist. Either one word or two words, but that's not really acceptable anymore. So a blacklist, we say a blocked list. Okay. Whitelist would say allowed list. Okay. Try to refrain from any words in the technology that will make any of your peers uncomfortable. Okay? I mean, we're all still learning because, like, for instance, blacklist and whitelist has been used like in every single firewall book you're gonna find out there. So we are dedicated. We're trying to change that to make like more sense out of these. Okay, so let me go back. So the master node invites the client node to transmit in turns. So you have 10 nodes, nodes 1 to node 10, and you have a master node. In the polling scheme, the master node will send a message to node 1. hey, node 1, this is the central authority or the master, whatever that is. Do you have anything to transmit? Okay. That's why I don't really like when people join late. But joining late is better than not joining. So, and probably those who join late, they have a very compelling reason to be like this. So the polling is each node, each central authority. When I say central authority, it could be a cellular tower, could be a Wi-Fi, a gateway that applies to wireless, applies to fiber, applies to copper. It doesn't really matter the medium, like what physical layer you're using. And in the polling, it's like, hey, do you have a packet to transmit? So node 1 will come back and it's like, oh yeah, I have something to transmit. So the master node will be like, okay, good. The floor is yours. Go ahead and transmit. The node 1 transmit. Then the master node or the central authority will go to node number 2. Hey, node number 2. I am the central authority. There's something to transmit. Node number 2 is like, oh no, I don't have anything to transmit. One, summarize what's wrong with this protocol. What's wrong with this picture that I just painted?
They're waiting for the master.
Thank you. So they're waiting for the master. And what's happening with the master, the communication with the master and the clients? Huge overhead. What is the definition of overhead? The definition of overhead, that's the packets that go back and forth without carrying meaningful information. To me, as a user, you're sitting at home watching your high-def Netflix or Hulu, whatever that is. What is the only type of packet you as an end user will care about?
Video packets and sound packets.
I'm sorry?
The video and sound packets.
Thank you. You as a user, you're watching your long-awaited movie. You don't care about the overhead. You care only about the packets that loaded with pixels that has some video representation. Okay. Anything, any packet or any transmission or reception that does not have any video content, you as a user, you couldn't care less. So one of the biggest problems with polling, a lot of overhead. What is overhead again? For the second, third time, is packets going back and forth do not carry meaningful information for you as a user. Of course, you carry meaningful information from the network perspective, because that's how the network will coordinate amongst the other nodes. You know? But for you as an end user, it doesn't mean anything. It does not add or contribute to the viewing experience. Okay? And let me tell you this. Right now, competition is very hard. Competition is very, it's very grueling between startups, telecommunication carriers. So see how many streaming services in the market today. You have Disney Plus, you have Hulu, you have Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, you have a lot, right? And if you notice, they're all almost at the same price. Probably $1 here, $1 there. So besides the wide variety of movies or selections, what would be your next thing? Is to have high def, like watch the movie, colors are very bright and everything is like super clear. Especially you invested a lot of time getting like this super duper TV, right? So what I'm trying to point from your perspective as a telecommunication engineer, with each packet that does not really carry information, there's a potentially loss of customers. Some of you is like, oh, why the professor is like talking about this, and this is like something very trivial. We just need to get our technical content and take an exam, and that's it. I'll tell you why. Because if you work in a group that you're designing a video or audio, whatever, and if you guys don't deliver, you will be fired. You will be fired. It's very competitive out there. Okay, so I'm telling you what really matters here. So don't think polling is bad because it's like overhead and that's it. I have to show you the extent of the impact on you as an engineer. Okay, so polling overhead, eventually that can cost not one person but a group of people, of engineers, their jobs. Okay, so the second thing is correlated. Latency. Because you don't have a fast mechanism to ask nodes to communicate, because the polling is like, hey, how are you? Do you have a packet? It's like, oh, I have a packet. I'm like, oh, go ahead and transmit it. It takes a long time. So if you have 100 nodes inside coverage area, imagine by the time, if you're going polling, imagine by the time you're reaching the 80th or 80 something or 90th node, how much time was wasted? So you really cannot construct a super fast network using polling. And I always tell you this: if you want to understand from a telecommunication or computer network perspective what is fast, think of the free application, VoIP application on your phone, either Messenger, whatever that is, that you call your friend 20,000 miles away from where you are, and the call gets connected, set up in a fraction of a second. And you could be talking video. Imagine, for free service, you don't pay a penny for it. Although, again, I said there's nothing really for free. Like you're paying information and behavior. That's beside the point. You are... in the class. Okay, your classmate is asking someone to send them the notes for the first 30 minutes. So yeah, please help each other, guys. Okay, helping each other, that shows that you have a leadership mentality. Okay. Yeah, so please try to help each other. So if you call someone, well, you're doing video like FaceTime or video chat or whatever. For service, guys, you see how fast it is. So if you want to survive in this market as an electrical engineer, you have to try to eliminate latency altogether. Okay? And the last thing we talked about, okay, it's signal failure. Matter of fact, I should have put it like as the first topic. Now, I want to hear you guys. If you were a hacker, what would you do to disrupt a polling network? A network that uses polling. Can I hear you guys, please?
Or you mean like the easiest or the most impactful?
It doesn't matter. Just let me hear what you have.
I mean, the most impactful would be to disrupt the master.
Say that again.
Would the most impactful be to disrupt the master?
Good. How we disrupt the master? That's good. That's good. That's an extra question. I mean, you perfectly answered it right.
Well, I think the easiest would be just to not have it send any messages or make it think that it's sending messages when it's not.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I like that. So that's the obvious way to crack the network. Any other methods? That was very good, by the way. Thank you so much. You were like right on target.
Maybe you can DDoS the master node.
DDoS what?
The master node to create like delays and stuff.
Like how?
Like you'll send like useless packets to the master node.
Thank you. That's a good way to send useless packets. What else?
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
So you said the master communicates in order through the nodes. If it's unable to communicate with one of the nodes, would it stop until it's able to, or will it just skip that node?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So you mentioned how the master node goes in order of the other nodes, like communicating with the first node.
It has a certain sequence, yes.
So if it's unable to establish communication with one of the nodes, will it move on to the next node, or will it stay there until it's able to reestablish the communication?
I love your question. By the way, I just sent you the lecture, guys. And my apologies again, I did not send it last time. So, what's your name?
Eric?
Eric. Okay. So, yes. Can you say your question last more time so I can hear it, because that's an important one.
So when the master is unable to communicate with one of the nodes and in sequence, will it stay and keep trying to reestablish the communication with the node, or will it skip and move on to the next node?
Thank you so much. Everyone understood his question?
Yes.
So let me answer. If you guys noticed, I said that's not a single protocol. What's being described here, it's a family of protocols. So say there are 10 protocols that use polling. And each protocol, it has at least 3 or 4 versions. So you could be using the 4th protocol, version number 2. So basically, your question will depend on what protocol and what version. So probably early on in the not so smart versions, it was like, oh, keep trying. Oh, well, can I keep trying for an hour and just ignore everyone else? Then smarter, the more recent versions will get smarter. It's like, you know what? Try 2 times. And once you do not hear anything from them, that means either they're hacked or they're down or they're at a range. Just move on. So that's the next level of being smart. Another level is based on configuration. So the protocol will have a lot of configurable parameters. So normally a protocol will come with default values. Like when I say default values or default behaviors. So if the node does not answer after 4 consecutive pollings, just ignore it. But the configurable part will allow the engineer or the system admin to configure it based on the environment. Okay? It's a lot of work for the system admin, but it's more customized to the environment. So if you work in a factory and you try to call robots, and robots move in and out of a range, and their speed. So if they go out and from one wireless range, probably they do some task and come back like within a second or two. That's their average in and out. So highly customized protocols, if you're the system admin for this factor, is like, you know what? If the polling fails, try after 2 seconds. Because most likely the robot will be, or the mobile node will be back after 2 seconds. You see how, did I answer your question? So you have the not so smart versions of the protocol. You have the dynamic ones and you have the fully configurable ones. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's what one of the things that network engineers are needed for. So your business unit will buy certain equipment. But they only know it's a router, for God's sake. That's all. You as an engineer, you should, they use protocol X, Y, and Z version 12. You have to understand the behavior of that specific protocol and version. Because say version 12 could work in a factory, but version 12 will be ineffective if you put it in a healthcare setting, like in a hospital. So that's why I love your question. I'll let you repeat a couple of times, because that could be one of the engineer's roles. Understand the protocol that's being used, or even better, you could be the engineers, like if you work for a healthcare facility, for instance. And it was like, yes, Eric, can you please select a protocol that works for us? So you have to understand the teeny tiny details of the protocol. Is node number 3 critically important that you need to keep polling until they answer? And if they don't answer, that means there's a disaster. So if you work like in a nuclear power facility, if node 3 that's like a temperature sensor or a radiation sensor, and it doesn't answer, it's a disaster, right? It goes well beyond the telecommunication. So maybe you have to put a script, if node 3 is not polling, you have to generate an alarm. You get it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was like a very good question that opened the opportunity for me to give you some more insight. So thank you. Okay. Any questions of polling? Okay. The next one is called, it's not like called, but another family is called token pathing. So basically you have 20 computers, or 20 servers, or 20 nodes, whatever that is. Whoever has the token will be transmitting packets. So first of all, what is the token? What is it? Like in the previous example in the polling I told you is a physical server, okay? Could be virtual, but it's a server. So,
Is it a port?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Were you asking us, or you were like saying it rhetorically?
No, what I'm asking, what is the token here? What is
Port?
it? Sorry?
A port?
A port? No. But thank you so much for answering. It's not a port.
Code?
Yeah.
Code, yes, exactly.
Yeah. What do you want?
The token is just a small application, just a piece of code.
Cool.
So you have 10 computers,
Ben?
and they have an agreement
okay.
on layer 2. It's like, okay, there's a code. If I pass it to you,
Right now, or it's
if you possess the code for whatever milliseconds or second or whatever, you're allowed to transmit. Then once you finish transmitting, you pass the code or the token to the node after you.
Debbie?
So let me ask you something. Do we have a single point of failure here or not?
Yeah.
What is a single point of failure?
The token?
Awesome, I love that. You guys are very good in interacting.
Why?
Yes, the token here, as opposed to the previous example where the server is a central
Bring him to the gay bar.
utility, now the token is a single point of failure. The single authority could be, well, a single point of failure.
Okay.
So basically, the token, it's a small file
She's okay.
that has instructions. Each node will, after it transmits the token, the receiver node will parse the
Yeah.
token
I'm
code
kind of for now. I'll call you
and
back later.
extract the instruction.
Alright.
So instructions would be stuff like how long, like in order of milliseconds or order of packets, number of packets. How long am I allowed to keep the token? Also, in the instruction, I have clear direction who should receive the token after I finish. So I'm node number 80, I should send it to node number 91. So that's the instruction. The sequence is written in the code of the token. So you could be parsing the token and just read it and follow it. But the problem again, each node has to wait for the token. So that's totally unacceptable in a cellular communication environment because you could have like 2,000 users. Does it make sense to have a single token? No. I'm telling you, I just give you the example of the free void. Then you want to talk to your friend in Canada, UK, China, in Africa, in Brazil. In a split of a second. I'm not going to wait for the token for all the people in my neighborhood in Manhattan or Brooklyn to pass the token. Think of scalability. That would be your like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So you know what? That's not really a good scheme. I can't wait for that long for a token to be passed to me. So that's not a good mechanism. Can anyone tell me if you were a hacker? And by the way, there are two types of hackers in general. There are active hackers and passive hackers. Passive hackers, their main goal is to steal information and stay undetected. So they implement some stealthy mechanisms to be undetected. The second type of hackers is active hackers. They don't really care if they get detected or not. They're not looking to steal your information. They just want to disrupt your operation. Like you're selling blankets on the internet, and your competition sells blankets. Cyber Monday or whatever. You want to take them down, your competition down. You don't care if they find out or not. You don't really need to steal any information. You don't need to stay under the radar. You just want to disrupt their operation. Again, that's what's called active hackers. Again, for the second time, passive hackers, they want to stay stealthy, undetected, and listening your information to a hacker server. So, with that understanding, how would you implement attacks in a token passing environment, or an environment that uses one of the token passing protocols? Ideas?
If you create imitate some token and send to the other computers.
Awesome. That would be passive or active.
I think it's active.
Active. Thank you. Awesome. I love that, man. I love that. Yeah. So one way to do it is to create a duplicate and send it. So how that's going to be active? Because it's going to be detected, because you're going to find two nodes transmitting at the same time, because each node will think it has only the token, but you violated the rule that only one node should have a token, and that's active. So you're not looking to steal information, you're just looking to disrupt operation. Good. Any other examples of hacking on this environment?
I was thinking of a passive one, trying to take over one of the nodes and just just receive the information you get probably from the token.
No, you're one of the 10 nodes. Okay? You're already one of the 10 nodes.
You already one of the 10 nodes. Okay.
So what would you do to hack the network?
I'd disrupt the token so no one could send any messages.
I mean, that's what your friend said. They just sent another one.
No, I would make it so none of them think they have a token. It will be the wrong token.
Okay, so that's another one. I'll tell you a couple other ways. You could open a file, the token file, and logically, if I'm the engineer that writes the token, I will say, each node will have the token for 10 milliseconds. So you could change these parameters, like, each node will have 2 minutes. So you send it to the next node. The next node, in an innocent manner, will think, I have 10 minutes to transmit. So it will keep transmitting, and now this innocent node will look like an attacker, like a greedy node. So that's one way to do it. You could manipulate the token, and instead of transmitting the token to node 24, you change the sequence, or you take some nodes out of the sequence, or you put non-existent node in the sequence. Like after 24, put 98. So you transmit the node to 24. Node 24 finishes transmission and looks for node 98 to transmit it to. There's no node 98. Now you effectively crippled the operation of the network. Another attack, the node could just simply discard the token. Just discard the token. Or if you don't want to discard it, and everyone, after forensic investigation, it's like, node X, Y, and Z last had the token, so probably that's the one that corrupted the token. You could corrupt some parameters and send it over to a next node. The next node, when it parses it just doesn't retrieve or get any valid information out of it. Basically, possibilities of misusing this token is pretty much unlimited. That what makes the cybersecurity engineer's job is really intriguing or interesting. Okay, I'm done for today. Any questions? Hello? Questions? No? By the way, I just sent you the lecture. I hope everyone got it. And we'll meet next week. Okay?
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right.
Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was late today. It's like, I'm sorry. Just had some issues with the internet.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You know? Things happen. Okay? Don't worry about it. You're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Take care.